Hello, YouTube. Just getting my mic set up. And my audience is on TikTok. That's why I'm always looking up at my phone. So I just film on YouTube. So this is where I'm saving it. Ooh, I just lost one of my screens. Okay. Hello, I'm just setting up on YouTube here. Okay, I'm all ready. So while we're waiting for people to turn up, I'd love to hear where you're from. I'm here in Vancouver, Canada. So what part of the world are you from? I've learned so much about geography from doing these lives. It's fascinating. What always interests me is how many people from other places that don't speak English tune in. So like how many people in this world can speak more than one language? I can barely handle one. I'm always so impressed when people can speak more than one language. Hi, Cal Properties. Okay, so where are you from? Sorry, I got a gravelly voice right now. What part of the world are you from? Why is my voice so gravelly? Love your content. Thanks so much. Heaven's easy. What does that mean? 4 languages. Oh, geez. I have actually tried many times to speak another language, French, because we're French Canadian. I'm not French Canadian, but we're French is a second language here. No, I think we're bilingual in Canada? No, we're not bilingual. We have 2 official languages here in Canada. So everything that we buy has to have French and English, like everything. Everything we buy has French and English on it. And when I moved to Australia, it was really weird because there was no French on anything. But anyway, you think I could learn how to speak French? No, I just can't. My brain doesn't go sideways. Like I don't do well with anything that's time travel. Like if you go back and forth, remember that movie Memento years and years ago? I just about had a seizure trying to keep up with it. I don't go my brain does not go sideways. I only go in a straight line. It's bizarre. There's something about that. I don't understand it. Anyway, so yeah, second language would just be agony for me. I just don't think I'm that bright. Ethiopia. Oh, hello. England, 11 p.m. Yeah, 8 hours ahead. Okay, 7 hours, 8. Wow. You were 8 hours ahead. Oh, okay, 5 from Toronto. Okay, I see. So I'm just adding it up. I lived in Australia for 20 years, so I got used to you add 6 hours and then it's an extra day there. So if I was in Australia, I would say, okay, what is it in Canada? So it's 6 hours ahead and it's yesterday. That's how I did it. I lived there for 20 years. Okay. So where are you from? Okay, we'll just get going. How many people are here? Oh, just 45. Okay, it's Saturday afternoon. I'm not usually on at this time. I know the prime time to come on here. I know exactly when I get the biggest audiences. I'm just never available at that time. So it just never works out for me. But anyway, and it doesn't matter to me how many people are on here because the fewer people that turn up, I'm likely to get to all your questions because I find it frustrating when I can't answer every question. I feel kind of bad about that. Anyway, if you go in the link above, it's bratbusters.linktree or something. Everything I've got to offer is on there. You can hire me for coaching, buy one of my courses, or download my free behavior board. You're on that too. That's what makes it work. Because you got to give respect to get it. Your kids aren't listening to you nearly as much as they're watching you. So you've got to be accountable. You show them how to be accountable. Okay, so Cal Property said, I have 4.5-year-old girl. Then you went on to say her behavior is, I don't understand. She got angry for no reason. Well, I don't know what happened. Like she got angry because she didn't get her own way. I don't know what happened. I don't know the situation. I need context around that. Okay, do I stay living with my new ex just to keep the kids stable? Well, I went through a divorce. My kids are 9 and 14. He moved out right away. He just moved out. And then as soon as we told the kids, he basically moved out. But we lived together for about 3 months before we told the kids because I wanted to get them through birthday and Christmas. And I wasn't unhappy I was happy we were separating, but I was not happy about breaking up the family for the kids. I was devastated for that. I was hoping to stay together through the teen years just to get them through that, realizing now, like that would have been ludicrous because they never saw us fight or anything. There was just nothing there. So it was misery living it. And I'm sure, for him too, it was just miserable living with someone you don't want to be with. But he came over for dinner every night for, I think, a week or 2 after he moved out, just to sort of transition. The kids really don't care if you're together. They just care that you get along. That's all they care about. That's all they care about. Get along. and put them first. They want to be put first. Ba, 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 ba. But I really need your help. Cal, if you really want my help, you're going to have to hire me. If you want that one-on-one stuff, you're going to have to hire me. That's in the link above, Bratbusters link tree. How old are your kids now? My son is 33. He's expecting his first child and this year. And my daughter's 28. She's getting married 1 week from today. So they've each been with their partners for about 10 years. So yeah, they're all grown up. That was, I would say, someone asked me, what was the biggest challenge with parenting? Them growing up. I missed it. I missed parenting. I loved it. It was the most fun I ever had. Yeah, I just finished my daughter's wedding dress. I'm a sewer, and I just made her wedding dress. I just finished that the other day. And then I made a little, it's very casual. It's just like a beach wedding. And it's just the parents there. So they were going to elope, but then they thought, it'd be kind of nice if we just had our parents there. So it's me and my ex, and then his parents. And it's just the four. We all get along great, So yeah, it'll be really nice. Really sweet. Yeah, I made her dress. So cute. Okay. Timeouts for a 3-year-old, is that appropriate? This is just my opinion, but it's a big one. I hate timeout, can't stand it. I think it's humiliating and degrading. Can't stand timeout. I would never do it. I think it's humiliating. But I think about it this way. If you did something wrong at work and your boss said, go sit in the corner, look at the wall, and then I'll come, and then when you're finished with that 5 minutes, I'll come over and berate you for everything you did wrong and discuss it all over again. It's humiliating. Kids, it feels the same for kids. It's just awful. Yeah, so anyway, that's my opinion. Hey, if you're here, you're going to get my opinion. I don't sugarcoat anything. What you see is what you get. Okay. My publicly very well-behaved 6-year-old is back chatting and being rude to me only, sometimes dad too. Okay, that just says they have social pressure that they don't want to be caught by they would be embarrassed to treat you like crap in front of other people, but when you're alone, they treat you like crap. Just says that they don't respect you. That's all it is. Remember, we're never fixing kids. We are teaching parents here. That's what I do. I teach you how to be a leader. When you're a leader, that just doesn't happen. They don't back chat or anything when you're a leader. I might have to leave the TV for a sec. I feel like I got a sneeze coming on. Not to hide under my desk to do it or something. Oh, something just went up my nose. Okay. I put the age down, by the way. If you're asking questions and if I skip through them, it's because there's no age there. If you put the word toddler, I can figure it out. But some questions, I don't know if they're 16, 6, or 6 months. Like literally. In the moment, what is your alternative to timeout? I don't talk a lot about in the moment discipline. That's week 4 in my course. The first 3 weeks when I'm teaching parents how to be a leader, the first 3 weeks is the behavior board. It's teaching you how to pick one battle at a time because you can't handle everything. I'd deal with everything in day 1. Second I met the kids, I'd deal with everything. But I'm level 10 with what I teach. I know how to be a leader. Now, you're learning how to be a leader, so you start with the behavior board. That's free up above there. So I think I might sneeze just a sec. Oh, okay. I feel it coming on. Anyway, as I just saying, yeah, timeout. So how old was that? Oh, they were over 3. The behavior board starts at 3. So start with the behavior board. Use that. The in the moment doesn't. In my course, it's up above there. It's 5 weeks to get respect. Week 4, everyone wants week 4. That's when we get away from the behavior board and we do in the moment discipline. But I want you to go through the behavior board first. It's teaching you how this all works. And then once you get that, you go, oh, I get it now. I get it. And you've got some practice under your belt. So you're starting to learn some leadership. Then you can do in the moment discipline. It's tougher. It is tougher. I've never used a behavior board. Like I always have used in the moment discipline, but I just the way I did it. But and then I thought, when I first started my business 17 years ago, I was teaching people to do what I did. And then I realized, wait a minute, I'm level 10 with what I do. Like you don't go there. I had to think, how do I progress them to get there? So that's when I invented the behavior board and it changed everything. It's teaching you the whole idea behind this because I believe that you should Uh, Show respect to get it. You give it to get it. You got to give respect before you even expect to get it. Everyone wants to get respect. I'm your parent. You better respect me. I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? You got to earn that. You got to work for that. There's no way I would expect to be handed respect on a silver platter. I work for that. I know how to work for it. That's what I teach you. What are appropriate consequences for a 3-year-old? You can check on the behavior board. That's completely free. It's up in the link above there. It just gives you a whole bunch of ideas for consequences. Okay, 3-year-old hitting and scratching at me when he's mad. If he's not a tantrum, I actually have a mini course on that. It's toddlers who hit and kick and punch. When they're having a tantrum, that's different. But if they do it just because they get mad and they're not tantruming, they're 2 different courses, one for tantrums, one for toddlers who hit, etc. So check that out. It'll explain that. Goes into great detail. My son fights, I don't know how old is he, 18, 18 months? I need an age. Okay, 28-month-old fights with his. Okay, toddlers are under 3. That's what I call toddler, except on that course when I call toddlers who hit and bite, because you sort of deal with it the same way when they're 3 years old. Anyway, 20-month fights with his peers and me. He's just a toddler. He hasn't formed yet. You can't reason with a toddler. You just take consistent corrective actions every single time they hit or fight or whatever. You just say no when you pull them away or separate them. But yeah, they're just taught. They don't make any sense yet. You can't reason with them. These mini therapy sessions, having all these discussions about why they should be nice to people, they're just a bunch of crap. I'd sure like to talk to the person who invented that. I think it's ridiculous. They're just garbage. They're all about actions because they learn through repetition and they're watching you. They're not listening to you. Think about it this way. A toddler's language is not words. A toddler's language is actions. So you go in their world to connect with them, to get them to listen to you. You use actions, consistent corrective actions, because they learn through repetition. They're not going to learn the first 50 times. It's probably going to take more like 100 times of doing the same action. I'm at a bit of a standstill with my business right now because I realize really TikTok, it's mostly toddler stuff. And that in coaching, it's not usually toddler stuff. It's usually older kids stuff. So there's a little bit of a disconnect there between my business and TikTok. So I've got 3 toddler courses out there right now. I've got someone working with me trying to figure this out, how to best serve you when it comes to toddlers. Because I want to have more for toddlers, because I've always said, I got to put my business where my mouth is. I've always said I want to prevent problems. Well, the toddler parents are how you prevent problems, right? But in coaching, it's more often than not, it's someone when they're already older. Often it's babies and toddlers too, but more often than not, it's older. And I want to prevent all those problems. So yeah, I'm figuring stuff out right now. So how to best serve toddler parents. Yeah, I got so many ideas. So I'm going to be doing some testing to see what you guys want. Anyway, I'll figure that out. I'm just so busy right now. Okay. How do I teach my 3-year-old to regulate herself? I thought that's what timeouts were for. No, timeouts it's like abusive. I hate timeouts, can't stand them. You don't teach someone to regulate themselves. When you're a leader, you don't teach someone to regulate themselves. You regulate yourself, set yourself up as a leader, and then they just calm right down. Changes everything. They feel safe, they feel understood, they feel loved, they feel good about themselves, they have high self-esteem, they make good choices. You regulate yourself. We're never fixing kids, we're fixing you. That's what we're doing. We're teaching you and fixing you. You regulate yourself, you lead, they will follow. It's just the way it is. I've never once ever tried to fix a kid, and I've been working with kids for 51 years now. I have never once tried to fix a kid. Every time a kid has done something I didn't like when they're under my care, this is what I do. I go, what am I missing here? What did I do wrong? Always, 150, 500%. Every single time a kid, and I used to mentor troubled teens, so you can just imagine some of the stuff I've dealt with. So every single time they did something that was bad or whatever, I always think, what am I missing here? Because I always blame myself. By the way, when they're great, I always take credit too. So there you go. Take the blame and the credit. And it was funny, years ago, before I started my business, people would ask me, teachers and principals and police would say, how are you getting these results? I did not know how to explain it. But really, the way it is, this was always my focus. I got to fix me, and then they'll follow. And plus, I never cared what they thought of me. My goal with kids is how they feel about themselves. And they don't like themselves if they're being rotten. They just hate themselves. Low self-esteem, it's in the toilet. So I'm guiding them into making good decisions, making them feel good about themselves. I'm the source of that. I become their mentor, their leader, the person they want to please, or certainly as teenagers, the person they don't want to disappoint. But I focused on how I treated them, but my goal was to make them feel good about themselves. Does that make sense? Think about that. That's a real message there. You don't care what they think about you. Don't focus on that. You focus on how they feel about themselves. And if you're the source of their high self-esteem, golden. When do parents start asking for your coaching? What's the most common problem they come to you with? A lot of marital discourse. Like what I mean by that is they're not on the same page, because what's happening is nothing's working. So the parents are at each other's throats. That's a real common one. I also specialize in teen crisis work. I mean, life and death stuff. So that's how I started my business. I also get parents of toddlers. They want me to fix their toddlers. That never happens. We just make them parents understand what toddlers are all about. I would say one of the most common things too is sibling rivalry. That's a really common one, kids fighting. But yeah, oh God, I could go on for hours. Tantrums are huge. Tantrums are gigantic. Trouble at school, bullying, being bullied. Yeah, lots of problems. And it's interesting with teenagers, the most common age to be hired by parents with a teenage girl, 12 to 16. Boys, it's almost always just turned 15 or 14 in 11 months. It's bizarre. It's right. That's the most common age with teenage boys. It's just 15, just turned or just about to turn 15. Isn't that weird? I understand that too, because my son was 14 and every single morning I'd go, morning, sweetie. How are you? And he'd go, morning, mom. How are you? It was all lovey-dovey, love you, hugs and everything. And I'll never forget this. This was just it's burned into my memory. I got up. He just looked taller. He was standing different. And I could see the back of him. He was at the kitchen sink and he was just turned 15. And I said, morning, sweetie, as always. Morning, sweetie. He turned around and went, morning, mom. His voice had changed. He just looked different. It was bizarre. But where'd my little boy go? His voice wasn't cracking anymore. I love that. God, it was fun. Anyway, he turned into a man overnight. So yeah, my favorite age is teenagers, by far. My absolute favorite age to raise and to work with, because that's to raise, I thought they were the most fun. And to work with, they're the most challenging. And I like a challenge in my business. So, okay. Good question. You've been watching me. I'm assuming you've been here before. That's why you're asking this. I have a hard time connecting with my kids on a kid's level, because I talk about that all the time. You connect on their level. You always find your inner toddler, your inner 6-year-old, your inner 16-year-old to connect with your kids. Don't expect them to find their inner adult. I talk about that all the time. I feel completely clueless. Okay, watch them, observe them, see what they do, and then enter that world. Like, let's say they like painting. You sit down and paint with them. Let's say it's a teenager likes playing video games. Sit down, wait till you're invited, sit down beside them reading a magazine. Then when next thing you know, they're handing you a remote and you're playing games together. So enter their world. You might start enjoying it. And I never faked it. Like I never pretended I was enjoying stuff. So if my son, he loved playing video games and he was 15, 16 at this point, it was harder to connect with him. We weren't girlfriends anymore. He was turning into a man, right? Anyway. So what I did was I got a magazine. I became furniture. I sat down beside him and I'm just flipping through a magazine. It wasn't saying a word, just sitting there. Next thing you know, he's handing me a controller. Next thing you know, we're playing. Next thing you know, he's making me music playlists. And then I wasn't any good at the racing games. I actually hate them. I was horrible at them. But I loved Guitar Hero. We ended up playing that a lot. And then the playlist, he loved heavy metal music and I hated it. But he found a whole bunch of heavy metal music. I ended up loving, and I hate that. Oh, I like that one. So yeah, so then he made me playlists. That's how I entered his world. And then parents sometimes will say to me, well, shouldn't it be two-way street? I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? Why? Parenting is give. You're lucky if you get. Like the get is seeing them turn into nice human beings. That's the get, seeing them high self-esteem, happiness, healthy. That's the get. You don't expect them to give to you. They probably will. If you're close to them, they will. but it's not 50-50. It's not a adult relationship. That's why you're the leader, because anyway. But yeah, I get that a lot with parents of teen. Well, it's not fair because I do stuff for them and I do that, and I'm like, right, what do you want me to help you with? Right. The fairness, especially if you've got teenagers you're struggling with, and I say the payback is when they have their own teenagers and you get to sit back and watch the show. But that's a long wait. That's a slow burn for that payback. But yeah. Okay. Child wanting to be the first at everything and becoming upset and disappointed when she isn't. Now, she's 6. That's a learned behavior. There must have been some payoff. You must sympathize with it in some way. If one of my kids had said, I want to be first, are you kidding me? You went first yesterday. What are you talking about? Like, there's no way I would ever pay. I would never, never, never reward that. So that's a tell for me. It says it must have worked. Children past the age of 3.5 to 4 only do what works. They only do what works. If it's worked in the past, they're going to keep trying it. So yeah, it's a tell. My 14-year-old daughter is always picking at me. I can't do anything right. She used to be sweet. Yeah, she's 14. Welcome to raising teenagers. She's 14. If you want my help, you're going to have to hire me for that. It's usually 5 sessions. I'll explain to you how you connect with your teenagers and how parenting changes in the teen years. If you don't want to hire me, I've done a whole bunch of videos on this. You can go back and look up, even got a little playlist with teenagers. But the 2 most important skills for parenting teenagers, number 1 is listening to understand and show empathy. You don't listen to gather information to lecture with. They will shut you out and not tell you anything. When you get good at, I call it silent listening. When you get good at this silent listening, it's really hard for me to shut up at the end of, once they've said something, for me to shut up was really hard, but I learned how to do it because it works. So number 1 is listening skills. You listen to understand, then shut up, right? Hard to do, silent listening. We're not going to do a whole video on that, silent listening. Number 2 is negotiating. You negotiate pretty much everything with teenagers. Look, this is what I want from you. I want your dirty clothes to go in the hamper and nowhere else, so they can't lay on the floor all day and then go in the hamper. And then you say, what do you want from me? They'll usually say, I want you to get off my back. I would say, well, that's not going to happen. Let's start slower. So, you kind of have some fun with this, and it's a 2-way street. And you use my behavior board. That's free up above. Teenagers, you're going to get varying results with that if you're doing it on your own. And often when I'm working with families with teenagers, we don't call it a behavior board. We call it an accountability chart, and we start real small. And you give before you even consider starting to get some results. You got to get their respect before you start getting results. So yeah, but yeah, if you want my help, you can hire me for that. Okay. Oh, you can't teach a 2-year-old not to speak to strangers. You can't teach a 2-year-old very much of anything. Okay, they're just forming. So just keep them safe. You're always with them, so keep them safe. I remember this. My daughter was probably about 3, and I always said you don't talk to strangers, and that she was around 3 when she clued into this, and I was right with her. It was in a checkout line. This lovely checkout lady started talking to her, and she was beautiful. She had long hair. She was just beautiful. I used to worry about her being grabbed. I'll tell you, she got a lot of attention. Anyway, so this checkout lady was talking to her. My little girl just went like this and looked away from her, like, because and the lady went, what's wrong with her? And I said, I told her not to talk to strangers, and she finally just clicked in. So then I had to tell her, because she was such a sweet, polite little thing. And I said, it's okay, when mommy and daddy are here, you can talk to strangers. Oh, okay. But yeah, they don't really clue into that till they're about 3. How do I deal with my toddler if he throws himself on the floor and doesn't want to get up? He's 3. So leave him there. If you have to go out, pick him up and cart him out to wherever you have to go. Take action. It's not words, it's actions. You have to go somewhere, pick him up and cart him out. Yeah, who cares if he throws himself on the floor? Who cares? It's like, great, okay, I get a break now. You're going to be on the floor for a while. I just wander off and do whatever I got to do. Okay, good one. Hannah Wilson. My 3-year-old has suddenly developed a huge attitude whilst. Well, you didn't put the L in there. Were you actually going to use whilst? Wow, I've never used that word in my whole life. This very fancy word. Answering almost all questions. Huge will answering almost all questions. Well, okay, the reason why they at 3, they often get like really difficult is because you're not a leader, and they've just figured that out. They found their power. They figured out you're not a leader. If you're a leader, that doesn't happen. But at 3, they find their power. At 3, I always say that's a real cutoff point. That's when they're starting to be able to think things through and reason. They just went, wait a minute, you're not a leader. I think I will be. That's what's happening. So work on your leadership skills. Remember, we never fix kids, we fix parents. We're teaching parents here. You set yourself up as a leader and everything falls into place. That's all we're doing here. It's not about kids, it's about you. You lead, they will follow. They naturally, instinctively need, crave, and want a leader. If you don't provide that leadership for them, they're going to be very susceptible out in the world as time goes on to bullying, peer pressure, the internet, drug dealers on the corner, the Kardashians. They're going to be susceptible to all the other leaders out there because they don't have one at home. When they've got one at home, you'll sail right through the teen years like I did, okay? Because you're that leader. They really trust you, and they tell you everything when you're a leader. As they get, not important at 3, but when they're 13, 18, that's important. You want that. You want to develop that trust where they'll tell you everything. And I was very goofy and very funny, and goofy, and humor was everything. It still is in our family. So humor was everything. I was very goofy, but I was always mom first. Always, 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 always. And I still am. They're 33 and 28. I'm still mom before I'm anything else. Is it too late if there are 3 and you haven't been a leader? Are you kidding me? 3? That's tiny. That's nothing. I specialize in teenagers. You can become a leader when they're teenagers. So it's never too late. Never too late. Unless they're out living on their own, they're 30 years old with their own kids. But even then, leadership is, the way I look at it, it's like someone that they can look up to and trust, and you're a safe place to land. So it's not that you're telling them what to do. As they get older, you're still sort of a leader in a way, and that you're always that person they can turn to. So yeah, I'm always mom before I'm anything else. But I'm the goofy one in the family. I'm the giggler, I'm the goofball. So you don't have to be serious to be a leader. But when it comes to discipline and the serious stuff, I'm very calm, that's when the leadership really kicks in. Yeah, 3 years old, tiny, just tiny. Perfect time to do it. Toddler time, that's almost just about survival. 3 is when this really kicks in. Use my behavior board. I have a whole course, it's a 5-week course to get respect if you're interested in that. It's all linked above in that Bratbusters link. And it explains everything I've got to offer is up there. So you can pay money to me, or you can get the behavior board for free. It's up to you. Different levels. Level 1 is the behavior board, which is free. Then you can buy a course, which is not free. And then coaching is the most expensive thing I have. But that's the reason. You're going to get different results with all that. I never did sneeze, did I? Boy, I felt that coming on for a while. I'm going to tell you something. I just feel like talking about it. It has nothing to do with parenting. I was riding my bike the other day, and I felt a bug. It was a substantial size bug, and it felt like a hard shell, like a beetle, went in the back of my throat when I was riding my bike. I was trying to cough it up. I couldn't. And I tried to swallow. Every time I'd swallow, it would start crawling up my throat. Never had that happen. I've put thousands of miles on my bike. I have never had that happen, ever. Have you ever had a beetle crawling up the back of your throat? And I had no water. I had nothing. Oh God, just that scratchy throat reminded me of it. Okay, sorry about that segue. And I don't mind bugs, like they don't freak me out, but I didn't like that feeling. If they're wanting something in the shop and creating because you said no, how would you? Oh, if they want something in the shop, I never, ever, ever got my kids treats in the shop, ever. Like I just didn't do it. It's no treat if they have to ask for it. And then the expectation is up here. So yeah, treats are something, they're supposed to be a surprise. Sometimes I might buy something for my kids, but I'd put it in my purse, and then later on, I'd give it to them later on. Like they knew when we were out, and I always said to my kids, if you ask, you get nothing. I always told them that, because that's not a treat, that's me filling a demand. So yeah, plus I didn't like sugar or anything, like I didn't like them having that stuff. So, but yeah, you've trained them, by the way. Like my kids never asked for anything when we're out, because I didn't train them to do that. It's a learned behavior. So what you're saying to me is sometimes they can ask and get, and sometimes they can't. So you're not consistent. That's why they're freaking out. Because they're thinking, why yesterday I got a treat, why am I not getting it today? It's an inconsistency. They don't understand the meaning of treat. Treat, if you give it one day, they think they should get it the next. Your expectations of them are out of whack. I had a ladybug in my nose. It's the worst. I don't know, worse than a beetle crawling up the back of your throat? I'd say they sound about equal. I remember once I was driving my mom's car. We were visiting Canada from Australia, and they're driving my mom's car. It was a little Honda Civic. This is 20, 30 years ago. Driving along down a freeway, or driving up to Whistler in my mom's car, and I saw it coming through the vent, the air vent. A bee flew straight at me. Came flying through the air vent. Anyway, enough of that. Okay. Okay, allowance. I have a whole video, tons of videos on allowance. Allowance, I started my kids at 3 years old, and I used to call it Mom's Bank. And I would use a book, doesn't matter what it is, but I had like a treble cash journal. So what I did was inside, I started one kid in the front and one kid in the back. So I only had 2 kids. When they met in the middle, I started a new one. And I ended up having 3 of them over the years. They both started getting allowance at 3. They have nothing to do with chores. You live here, you clean up. That's it. I never would pay for chores. But this was just, I think every child deserves to learn how to manage money. Anyway, so every single Saturday, I'd say, come on, we're doing Mom's Banking. So I would write down date, description, debit, credit, balance. And then they would see it. So I would talk to them about money. I never gave them cash or anything. All their money went in there. So, and then when they were 15, I cashed them out. And they saved thousands and thousands of dollars. I was a single mom, and I had never put any of that money aside. And I had to hand over thousands of dollars. Anyway, I never put it aside. I just wrote it down all those years. So take my advice here now. Put that money in the bank somewhere. I cashed them out, sent them to a bank, and they knew how to manage money then. And anyway, and I paid 10% interest on every $100. So if they get to $200, they got $20 interest. And they only got paid interest on the same amount once. So if they spent some money, and every time they wanted to make a withdrawal and spend money, we discussed it. I would nix stuff. Like, they couldn't just take money out and buy candy. It's like they had to pass it through me, right? Because I was the mom. I'm in charge here. So anyway, but they might say, hey, look, there's a brand new PlayStation game out. I really want to buy it. And I said, well, I don't like you just spending your money on games. How important is it to you? And I'd say, now, if you do buy it, it's $80. So that's going to come down. Your balance is going to come down to this. So that means you're going to have to wait. So another 6 months before you get any more interest. Sometimes they'd say, oh, never mind. And other times they'd say, yeah, it's really important. I'm going to buy it. So you're still in charge of how they spend their money. But every single time they do, it's a discussion. Every time they get money coming in and they have money going out, they learn to respect money and stop and think about it. If you just give your kids cash, they have no respect for money. Well, should I just let my answer fly or kind of be nicer about it? Let me think. Why does a 5-year-old say no over and over defiantly and yells and then still complies? So in other words, you say something and they no, and they yell at you, but they still do it. That's them trying to save face. What that says to me is there's a little bit of shame in following through, and that's a learned behavior usually. Like, do you ever say, fine, then, or fine, if you don't do this, that, you're putting a negative connotation on them actually following through. There's some shame involved in them doing the right thing. So yeah, it's kind of complex. I know exactly what I'm thinking. It doesn't make any sense now when I'm saying it to you. I realize that. But yeah, it's just like, well, you have to do that. No, okay, and then do it. But then don't go, there, you did it. Like, no, none of that rubbing it in. That's where that comes from. It's something that they've learned to, they're trying to save face, but there should be no face to shave. There should be, to save, there should be no shame. There should, I'm implying there's some shame involved there. Or you've just started doing it. You've just started taking charge and they're just fighting back, potentially. That could be it too. But I think it's the other. I could be wrong. From Canada. Yeah, I'm from Canada. Vancouver, and lived in Australia. My kids were born and raised in Australia. I came back to Canada because my mother was elderly and ill, and she died in my arms. It was beautiful. I never would have left Australia if my mom hadn't got ill. And it was just I never wanted to leave. Like, I just didn't want to move again. Like, it was so awful immigrating, especially with 2 kids, and you're Canadian, they sound Australian, and then you got an ex-husband over there, Australian. I couldn't move without him making the move too. It was just so complicated, but it was all worth it because I adored my mother and she died in my arms. So it was all worth it. You know, what's interesting is you move, when you're young, you move to a place you love. You want to live in a place you love. And I remember hearing this like 50 years ago, and someone said to me, yeah, because I used to say, oh, I'd love to live in a warm climate, which I ended up doing. And then they said, yeah, you move to where you love when you're young, but when you're old, you move to where the people you love are. That's where you want to be. And I wanted to be with my mom at the end. Isn't that interesting? So they were right. They passed away now, I'm sure, but they were right. I'd love to tell them, you were right. I get it. Okay. What are you talking about? Do you believe moms traveling alone with their kids should conceal carry for their? I just figured out what you're talking about. I'm not answering that. Okay. How do you discipline a 2-year-old? Toddlers are crazy. They don't make, well, they're not crazy so much as they just haven't developed sanity yet. They're brand new, fresh human beings. They're just forming. Okay, imagine if you're 2 years old and for the first year you were just a potato laying on a mattress. They haven't got any context of the world. They can understand right and wrong, but they just work on urges. They don't work on, maybe I shouldn't do that. They haven't developed reasoning yet. So what you do with toddlers, but they do learn through repetition, like actions. It's consistent corrective actions, not words. They learn through repetition. That's the only way they really learn. So like they'll touch something hot 50 times before they'll stop and not touch it. Like they don't learn right away. Okay, it's repetition. So consistent corrective actions. Like if they're hitting someone with a toy, you say no, take the toy away, and that's it. Do it every single time, though. You got to be consistent because they're going to remember the one time you didn't. They just do. It's funny. They don't remember all the times you did, but they remember the one time you didn't. They're just funny that way. Potato. Yeah, isn't that true? Isn't that true? Well, the expectations of toddlers are up here. It's unbelievable. Who's teaching this garbage? Reason with a toddler, have a mini therapy, discuss feelings, just to help them self-regulate. What a bunch of crap. They are brand new, fresh human beings. They've got one marble and some tumbleweed floating around in there. And you're going to reason with them? Reason with someone who has no reason yet? They don't have reasoning. They haven't developed that yet. God, I'd like to get hands on the person who developed all this trendy stuff, because I saw it coming. 30 years ago, I saw this happening, and I thought, oh, this is disaster. Disaster. Okay. If they're hitting with their hands, you can't take their hands away. You just say no and remove whoever they hit or remove them temporarily. So you're still removing, but you're just removing them from the fun or removing the fun from them. Okay? You're removing, it's an action. You're doing it. And 100 times, maybe 150 times, they'll learn. The 4 best things of advice. Now, did I write that down? Please, did I? Yes, I did. Oh, I wrote down 5 now. Oh, that's funny. Okay, I keep adding to it. At first, it was the 3 best pieces of advice for raising toddlers. Then it was 4. Now I've written another one down. Here they are. Complete with toddlers. That's under 3 years old. Child-proof your house so you never have to say no. Do a toy rotation system so they never get bored. I have lots of videos on these things, okay? Enter their world when you're playing with them. Enter their world. You don't sit on the sidelines and applaud when they're playing in the sandbox. Get in the sandbox with them. The more you connect with them in their world, the more they're looking at you and listening to you. You're connecting on a different level. You're becoming a leader because you're in their world. They just get it. The 4th one is stop trying to figure them out. They're just brand new, fresh human beings. They haven't developed sanity yet. That's why they seem so crazy. To some toddlers, sticking their hands in their pants and smearing poop on the wall is completely normal. And it is for some of them. They don't all do it, but some will. And to be totally transparent, I did it. I was a baby. Evidently, they got up in the morning and poop was all over the wall. My mom said, "Oh, Phil, I can't handle this." And he was a farmer. He said, "It's just like an old cow barn." He cleaned it all up. Anyway, and the 5th one is stop talking and take action. So stop these mini therapy sessions and do the consistent corrective actions because they learn through repetition. That's my 5 best pieces of advice for raising toddlers. I talk fast, don't I? Sometimes I can barely catch a breath. My daughter and I talk a lot. We see each other every morning at the gym, and we talk a lot. But she was telling me a few years ago, she was talking to they're getting married in a week, actually, and she was talking, and they've been together for 10 years, and they were walking to their gym when they lived downtown in a different area. We live really nearby now. Anyway, she talked so much that when she stopped talking, she went like this. She actually talked her lungs out of all their breath. And I thought, that's my girl. She gets that from me. Okay. What are your thoughts on physical chastisement? Well, should your boss be doing that? Like really, it's sort of a physical respect thing. You have to restrain them sometimes from hurting themselves. But yeah, hitting a child is never great. You know, lots of parents do it. But if you're going to spank them or yell at them, you're better to spank them than to yell at them, from what they tell me. I'm repeating what all kids have told me. I'd rather be hit than yelled at. They hate it. Hate being yelled at. It just destroys their soul. Being hit destroys their butt, or you know what I'm saying. Yeah, they'd rather be physically harmed than emotionally harmed. They've all told me that. It's interesting, isn't it? Yeah. But the only reason parents do this is they don't know what else to do. That's why I'm here. I'm here to tell you what to do instead. I'm not judging you for doing it. I'm just telling you what they tell me. And I'm telling you what else to do. Most of my clients yell. The odd time I'll get a client who says, yeah, no, we don't yell. I almost don't know what to do with them. It's that rare that I get a client who doesn't yell. These are highly successful. A lot of my clients are teachers, principals, child psychologists. They have child development degrees out the wazoo. I have none of that, but I have tons of experience. Now, I couldn't do what they do, by the way, and they're struggling with what I do. Parenting was my thing. I always found it easy. It was just, I just get it. So it's personal, though. It's personal. All that other stuff is institutional stuff. It's not as personal. That's why it's different skill levels, different skills. So, but yeah, so these are highly successful, educated people, and they still yell at their kids and hit them and, spank them, don't go off on them about that. Lots of people do that. So, and I'm not criticizing them for that. They just do it because they don't know what else to do. I teach them what else to do. And they get so frustrated too, because they say, how can I run a whole school or run a whole class? Or how can I help other people with their kids? I'm a child psychologist, and how come I can't parent my own? Personal, institutional, just different. It's just different. Nothing is as personal as your kids. They're a part of you. They're a reflection of you. It's just different. And they know all your buttons. I'm trying everything to not yell. You've taught me so much. Yeah. And yelling works in the short term, but it backfires big time. Big time. Okay. How do I stop my 2-year-old from kicking me when changing her nappy? Oh, nappy. Oh, you're Australian. I raised my kids in Australia. So all my baby terms are Australian, like nappies and cots and all that stuff. So, and prams. So it's nice to hear that. Anyway, do what I did, just physically overpower them. I got real good at it. I was really good at putting the elbow across the chest and holding one of the legs down with one hand. They knew when mom did that, they didn't even fight me after a while. They just learned. I just learned to physically get really quick and overpower them. Plus, I had my kids in cloth nappies too, so they were a lot more work. But yeah, I just overpowered them. But I never let them win. If you let them win once, they never forget it. Their dad struggled more because he was more the pleaser parent. I was definitely the leader, so they didn't fight with me very often. But yeah, you can overpower them at 2. Just make sure they never win. Never. Like their dad didn't want to hold them down, but because he was slower at changing the nappies too, right? So he didn't want to hold them down for that long, and then he'd let them take a break. Big mistake. But there's nothing wrong with that. You don't need 2 leaders. You only need 1. You only need 1 leader in the family. But then you're always on the same page, though. And I didn't want him messing our kids up. I knew what I was doing. I wanted to be the leader. And he wanted me to. He loved the way the kids were when I raised them. Like he didn't want to be in charge because they pushed him around more. So, and I said to him, if they ever push you around and I'm not around, they wouldn't do it if I was around. And then I said, just say, do you want me to tell mom? That's all it took. So we were on the same page. It's kind of nice to have, different style parenting. My mom was the leader. My dad was the pleaser. I got away with a lot more with my dad, but I didn't do it when my mom was around. What disciplinary system works best in your opinion? I don't know what you mean by that. I've got that's all I talk about. I have a behavior board. So I don't yeah, I don't know. I don't know what you mean. You mean what's out? I don't know what's out there, by the way. I stay away from that. So if I'm insulting something, I have no idea who teaches it. I do not. I stay away. I've never read a book on parenting, on kids, anything. Everything I've learned, kids have taught me. So I just teach leadership. That's all I teach. To me, that's the favorite because it takes you right through the teen years. They'll tell you everything when they're teenagers. If you're a good leader, they'll tell you everything. And you want that. You want them to have a safe place to land, someone to lean on, someone to talk to. That's what I see leadership. And everything I teach, I'm really going backwards. What I mean by that is I specialize in teenagers. I'm always going back. How do I get you there? How do I get you to sail through those teen years like I did? That's always my goal. Never take advice from someone who hasn't finished the job. How the heck do they know how could they teach anything? If they haven't lived with teenagers yet and raised them and finished raising them, How can they possibly teach parenting? How do they know what they're doing now is going to get them through the teen years? How? A lot of stuff that's trendy right now backfires big time in the teen years. Big time. That's why I get so many clients in the teen years, because they've been doing the trendy stuff. And then the kids are about 7, 8, 9 that starts backfiring usually. Big time. Anyway, what was I going to say about that? Anyway, leadership is what I teach. I don't have a name for it really. It's just my style. And the reason I started this business was I was mentoring troubled teens, and they said, "You got to teach this, Lisa," because no one had ever talked to them the way I did. And but my goal was always to make them feel good about themselves. And then they treated me like gold, because why wouldn't you want to be good and nice to the person who made you feel good about yourself, right? But I didn't take any crap either. I often tell a story that I've never said on TikTok, but I say in coaching. I tell this one story all the time about the teen, and I kind of figured stuff out with teenagers. You don't take any crap, but also you got to make them feel good about themselves. But yeah, I don't take any crap. I have a real good story about that, but I don't want to say it on here. Yeah, they do remember when they win. They smell out the weak one. They just do. They just know. Whereas I never had that. I never had that weak side to me with kids. You know what? Because I always thought, you know what? They need a leader, and I'm going to be that. Like, I just knew. I know what kids need. I just get it. They need a leader. They desperately need a leader. They crave a leader. All kids do. Oh, don't ask me about gentle parenting. Honest to God, I've never looked it up. And I'm sure when I call pleaser parent is the only style I ever really talked about, and authority, those two. But there's a whole bunch of stuff under those two umbrellas. So I am never, ever commenting on that. I never have. Okay. I'm not going to critique that, because that would make me kind of trashy, wouldn't it? Like, I just don't like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I generalize when I talk. So yeah, I don't know. I honestly don't know much about it. I only teach what I know. What stuff specifically? Stuff. What was I talking about? What was I talking about? That's Melly. No, how do you be the disciplinarian and the fun parent as a single parent? I was a single parent. And we split up when they were younger. Well, how do I explain this? Okay. The only other role that I equate to my style of parenting that I think is so similar is a sports coach. It's not a teacher. It's nothing like that. It's a sports coach. It's more personal because there's less kids. It's fun. And usually coaches love kids. And also there's rules. You got to run from first to second to third and then home. If a kid ran from first to third because they didn't want to hit second base, they'd be sitting on the bench, and they'd be embarrassed. Like, they wouldn't fight the coach on that. They'd say, "Hey, you cheated. You missed second base. Sit on the bench for an inning now." So there's rules. But those kids usually are very drawn to that coach. It's like a mentor, and they want to please that coach. They feel safe with the coach. They love the coach. The coach is fun. I was definitely the fun mom. Definitely. I was goofy as anything. Like, some of the stuff I did, the kids still roll their eyes at. Like, I was crazy. But if they had ever stepped a toe out of line, I was like, "Excuse me? Oh, sorry, Mom." Like, because it would have been embarrassing for them to see that in me. They rarely ever saw that in me, where I went, "Excuse me?" Like, it was very rare that they ever saw that side of me come out, because I didn't need it to, because they were respectful, but it was mutual. Plus, when I messed up, and I messed up lots, just everybody does, right? So if I messed up, they would look at each other like this, and they go, because they knew if I messed up, they'd say it, because I knew right away. As soon as I messed up, I go, "Oh, crap." So I knew, and I'd say, "What do you want?" And they'd say, "We'd love to go to the water slide park after school." And they said, "Okay, fine." So I made amends. If I messed up, I'm accountable too, right? We all mess up. Life's messy. It's not about perfection. It's about, and that's what a leader is. A leader also explains when they do something wrong. Like, you're not supposed to be perfect, but you're supposed to be a leader. A leader always that leader stuff, you're never afraid to be a leader is what I'm saying. Like I could have cared less what my kids thought of me. If I was doing the right thing and correcting them, if they did something wrong, I could have cared less what they thought of me. You know what's interesting? I never heard "and I hate you," "you're mean." I never heard anything like that from my kids because I was very respectful in the way I dealt with stuff. I'd say, I didn't like that. So I'll tell you what do you think we should do? Do you think no TV tonight? How's that? Or you can give me a facial. I love stuff like that. And they hated doing it and I loved it. They'd say, okay, fine, a facial. So that's how I worked it out. So there was never any of this going on. And my son, even at 15, said he could never rebel because I was too reasonable and easy to talk to. So, but I was very much the fun mom. I was definitely the goofy parent, but the dad was the pleaser parent. But I was the leader, but I was still the goofy one. About trendy. Okay, I'm just going to bring this up once. I do umbrella. I'm sure there's a whole bunch of different parenting systems and styles out there that fall under these two categories. One is the old-fashioned authority style parenting, and the other one is the trendy pleaser parent. Okay, so the old-fashioned authority, it's my way or the highway. You do what I say because I'm the parent. Okay, those teenagers rebel in the teen years, but come out the other end pretty strong and pretty okay, and they respect their parents and they appreciate what they did for them. On the other hand, pleaser parent, I remember when that style first started cementing and becoming really trendy, because that's just feeding the mom guilt. That's all it's doing is feeding mom guilt. So that's where it came from. So anyway, that one, they tend to raise teenagers who wipe their feet all over them and never have any respect for them. And those teenagers they're more likely to be self-entitled snowflakes with mental health issues because they're used to parents who, they have to have a participation award. And I didn't like the way you looked at my child. And they're always trying to roll out the red carpet for their special little snowflake. Like you're not doing them any favor. You're raising these kids who just have no fortitude, no strength, no confidence. They're just wimpy, it's not a good thing to do. So I'm exaggerating, of course, but those are the two general styles, the old-fashioned one, the trendy new one. I do neither of those. I'm the leader. I'm the one, I give respect to get it. And I want to have a great relationship with my kids. I want to have fun with my kids, but I'm still the leader because that's my job. I used to say to my kids, if you're good, life is good. If you're bad, life ain't so good. I'll make sure of that because I'm your mom and that's my job. When they first started grade 1, I told their teachers, respectively, I said, if my kids ever step a toe out of line, never discipline them. Call me and I'll do it. That's my job. Like I'm sending nice kids to school. I never got a call. Teachers love me. And I spent tons of time in school helping with other kids too. So yeah, that's your job to raise nice kids, nice human beings. And when they're like that, they tend to have higher self-esteem. I would say children who are raised by this trendy pleaser parent tend to have very low self-esteem. Children raised by the authority parent have higher self-esteem. They're better prepared for life. Does that make sense? It does, doesn't it? Think about it. What were some of the things you messed up with? Oh, for sure. It was impatience. Okay, we got to get this done. Let's get this done now. Come on. It was that. And they're like, gee, mom, we just got out of bed. So mine was impatience. That was what I messed up with more than anything, was impatience. And I hate being kept waiting. I think it's just so rude to be late. And the odd time I just forgot something and I didn't pick them up on time. Wouldn't even have been that. I wouldn't have forgotten that. It would have been something else where I was never late, but if I was, they love that. Gee, you were 5 minutes late, Mom. What do you want? It was like that. So, and the funny thing is my son's always the one to call me on everything. My daughter wouldn't so much. She's super easygoing. My son picked up on everything and he'd look at his sister. What did Mom just do? They love that stuff. So instantly I go, what do you want? What do you want? So it was that accountable. But even that was kind of fun, right? Oh, and I remember one time I had done something wrong. I tried to rush them with something. And so then I think my son came up with this. He said, you know what I'd like you to do? Not talk all night. He was a teenager at this point. He said, I don't want you to talk all night. I negotiated my way out of that. There's no freaking way I could have not talked all night. So I negotiated my way out of that. I don't know what, I probably gave him $1,000 or something. I negotiated my way out of that. You can always negotiate with teenagers. I did that when they were young too, but I already had that mutual respect going. I negotiated when they were little, but I already had that mutual respect. You don't start there. You work up to that. That's like, yeah. Okay, well, this is on you, not your toddler. Like the way you worded this, I'm going to come at you for this. How do you deal with a toddler who unlocks and open doors and tries to go out by themselves? How do you deal with a parent who can't childproof their house? That's what I would say. That's on you. You got to childproof your house. You can't blame a toddler for that. That's on you. You got to childproof. Put the lock up way high. There's all sorts of childproof mechanisms you can get. Put something up way on high and you have to have a key to get out. So that's on you. That's your responsibility to keep them alive, not them, not theirs, right? Okay, I gotta go. Hi, I am. I haven't seen. Did you just join? You're usually here. Okay. Anyway, I gotta get going now. If you want my help with anything, it's all above. You can hire me, buy a course, or download my free behavior board. And I'm also on Instagram now. That's going quite well. I blew up on TikTok like overnight, virtually overnight. And Instagram's more of a slow burn. It's just different. I've been on there now for about 6 months. So that's going well. So if you're into Instagram, I'm also on there. It's the only two platforms I'm really on. The only thing I do on YouTube is I film these lives on YouTube. So that's where they're saved. And some people, especially if I've talked to them one-on-one about more in-depth stuff, they like to go back to that and review what I said about that. Anyway, send me an email if you have ideas for videos. I don't answer personal questions about your family on just email. I don't have time for that. That's coaching, right? So, but if you want, if you send me an email and say, oh, could you please do a video on such and such? I'm happy to do that. Anyway, thanks so much for joining me. I'll be back again tomorrow. Bye now. Bye, YouTube.